Welcome to the Authentic Living and Loving channel, where we feature stories about individuals that are living to the beat of their own drum, doing things a bit out of the ordinary, living authentically and inspiring others to do the same. My name is Dr. Jordan Alexander, and today we are fortunate to have with us Enrique Gonzales. I'm thrilled to welcome Enrique, a true powerhouse in leadership, mentorship, and personal growth. He's a best-selling author, podcaster, veteran, and executive coach who's dedicated his life to developing authentic and impactful leaders. After 26 years in the U.S. Navy, where he earned prestigious honors like the Meritorious Service Medal, Enrique transitioned to the civilian world, taking on roles as a business owner, nonprofit leader, and mentor. He's also a champion for the Latino community, co-authoring the Latino Leadership Playbook and empowering others through his work. Enrique is the host of the award-winning Developing the Leader Within podcast, where he shares real-world leadership lessons from his personal challenges and victories. Beyond his professional achievements, Enrique's commitment to faith, family, and giving back shines through, earning him the Gold President's Volunteer Service Award. His journey is a testament to resilience, authenticity, and the power of leadership to transform lives. I'm so excited to have you on the other side of the podcast microphone, Enrique. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that great intro. I am excited about the conversation we're about to have.
Fantastic. It's such an impressive pedigree, and there are so many things, and I have no idea where we'll end up, but really excited to start. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. When you were a little wee Enrique, really keen to understand, when you were growing up, were there any defining moments from your childhood that really shaped you as the person that you are today?
Yeah, so my journey in childhood began in Puerto Rico, where I was born. At the age of 4, my mom decided we needed to go to big old New York City. And so from the age of 5 on to about 16, 17 years old, I grew up in the what would they call concrete jungle of of New York. Defining moments. If I look back at my childhood, it was very tumultuous, to say the least. A lot of trauma for a young little guy from another place, another island. And I did not find many of things to say, oh, wow, I want to be like that. There was an individual, Laurie. I always mention her because she was she stuck out like a sore thumb in the environment we were in. Very professional, very studious, very educated. And I just thought that that was just so amazing coming from where we were. And she did inspire me early. I did not have any solid type of inspiration until we get into high school. And high school, because of what they call out here the junior ROTC program, which is a high school level military exposure type of program, right? That's where I said, oh, wow, there might be something bigger than what I've been seeing all these years that could literally propel me to something great. And sure enough, right? I took those years and all those teachers and all those instructors as a way of saying, hey, there is better than what I've been growing up in. And thankfully, that was the case.
Nice. Okay. So not a lot of inspiration when you were really young, but you did pick out the individual and Lori, and then going into it, you sort of got a little bit more direction, more in the high school kind
Right.
of years and things. Enrique, with your culture, I'm culture is really big deal for me.
Yeah.
So I just want to just sort of ask you a little bit about your Latino heritage. So moving from Puerto Rico, how's your relationship with, and how do you, where does that heritage fit into your current life and even your view on leadership?
Yeah, so heritage is something interesting to bring up from my perspective because although I was born in Puerto Rico and even raised in a Hispanic Puerto Rican community, so we didn't lose many of the things, the music, the food, the language, the nuances of being in a Hispanic community. We didn't lose that. What we did lose is the warmth and the love and the joy that is in Puerto Rico. It's two different environments, New York, Puerto Rico, and it just that was not present, right? So that also allowed for a lot of things to occur, uh, which, and not that it wouldn't have occurred in Puerto Rico. It's just that that's where I grew up, and so that's where it happened. But culturally, I was raised to speak Spanish, to read, to write. I had all the ingredients of someone that is from a Puerto Rican background, except that when you move off island, you almost feel like you lose your pedigree. And
Tell
I,
me more
I,
about that. Tell me that you lose
yeah,
your pedigree.
yeah. So because I am more dominant in English now,
Yeah.
I feel, and obviously this is my feeling, that I have lost my place in the Puerto Rican culture because if on island they refer to you in a particular way. So like if a Puerto Rican moves off island, grows up somewhere else and come back, they refer to you as from out there. So there's already a discriminator, right? A discriminator.
Mm, yeah.
You are either from in here or you're from out there. And so when you are from out there, you feel like you don't belong. And that has been the greatest struggle for me as a Puerto Rican, although I was born there, ended up graduating high school there, I still felt and till today as an outsider.
That is so interesting, right? Because that sense of belonging is so, so, so important to us as humans. That sense of roots. And um, I'm I so resonate with what you're saying. My father was from Croatia, my mom from the Ukraine. And so they immigrated to Canada, and that's where I was born. And we were raised, as you're saying, the food and the music and the language and even, there's that richness, but there's a difference between being in a different place, transplanted, as opposed to the roots where you were born. And yeah, I've spoken to a lot of immigrants, now I'm in New Zealand, which is yet again, another step removed. Um, but grappling with that sense of where is the place where you stand. In New Zealand, the indigenous Maori, they talk about your turenga waiwai, and that's the place where you stand. And it's kind of it's almost like the connection and the depth of the physical geography runs through your bones, and it's strong, and and it gives you that ability to lean into your heritage in a way that is almost conditional upon you being on that bit of dirt.
Right. And it's you're saying that and in my mind I'm recalling a period where I would hear the Star Spangled Banner version of Puerto Rico, right? The national anthem, and tearing up because that's my island. My birth certificate has the Puerto Rican stamp on it. Yet I also tear up because I feel like I'm not their people. It's just a very dynamic and complex feeling of who am I? Where do I belong? And it really does cause a war within you to even identify. But yeah, I could cry at the the drop of a dime of a song because I feel so indebted to that island for my whole upbringing, yet and still feel foreign because the unreception of the people, right? So
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I remember being at Calgary Stampede with my daughter actually last year. And they have the Mounties running around with the horses. I'm sure there's a different word for that, but anyways, galloping maybe. And they do the national anthem. And so I've been in New Zealand for 30 years. I have a Croatian Ukrainian background, but because I was raised in Canada, like you're at high school in Puerto Rico,
mhm.
and the tears weren't just coming down. Honest to God, it was like we were going to have to call flood control, and it was an uncontrollable. And I love being in New Zealand, but it's that real. It's the gut wrenching, palpable feeling of, gosh, I really belong here. I miss this. And I wonder, what does this kind of almost no person's land, how does that reflect on us as leaders? By having, because some people been in the same place for the last, 60 years and I'm never
Oh
going to,
yes.
and I look at them sometimes and like some of my friends from high school, and I kind of miss that. Like I just think because it's the road diverged in the wood, right? Like they stayed, they have really deep roots. They've been through every life experience together. And I'm the one that's flitting off, but what's the cost?
There is a cost, but I would love to bring this up because and thank you for going this way. Not every leader can pay the price of leadership, and not every leader knows what that price even looks like. The the ability to have no boundaries, like territorial boundaries, I believe has added to the flavor of the depth of my leadership potential because I am so open to different ways of doing it in different places that when I come to the position of authority in terms of leadership wherever I am, I bring with me a suitcase of tools, right? A suitcase full of thoughts and experiences. And so, though I have that longing, right? That longing for, um, I think that some of us that have been basically you've been taken out for a different purpose, it almost serves a greater purpose than your standard stay at home leaders. And they could never speak to the flavor and the colors of leadership in the world, and we could.
Yeah, I love that you're putting this positive spin on it, right? Because not only does it make me feel better, but it also sort of like I mean, when we look at that whole diversity lens and really being able to walk in a place where there are, you're aware that there are different shoes. There are different feet that fit in different shoes. There are different ways of walking. There are different paths. And it's almost like unless you've tasted that, it's really hard to look from the position of the other into these different, like I'm not Latino, but my experiences, I'm looking for almost the hook. What's the parallel that you're going through from your heritage? What's the parallel that you're going through your lived experience? Because it almost then takes us down from that superficial, what do you look like and what's the color of your skin, into that, what's the thing that makes us tick? Where's our heart? Where's our soul? It is location agnostic.
Hmm. And look, we was talking earlier prior to this. pig.
Yes.
You live in an area where pig is central. I come from an island where pig is central. And you could say, how about that pulled pork? You
Yeah.
know? And and we would both connect immediately without you knowing my Latino background in depth. And, and that's the beauty of life. The
Mm.
beauty of life is that you don't need to know my Latinos isms, right? You don't.
Yeah.
What connects us? What is it that connects us? And I was just talking not so long ago to a group of CEOs about being culturally aware versus culturally competent. And I told them, I said, I'm a Puerto Rican born on the island of Puerto Rico, and I am not culturally competent about what it is to live on the island of Puerto Rico. So I can't expect you to be. But what you can be is culturally aware. One conversation over pulled pork, and we're done. We're best friends for the rest of our lives, and we can diverge from there. But that's the beauty of a borderless leadership experience. It gives you that.
Yeah, I think there's something really important in that as we sort of there's a lot of discussion about, is it divisive? Are we being, we're trying to see everyone and be aware of and appreciate and acknowledge. And in so doing, it's almost like where's the attention? Is the attention on defining all the different things, as you say, that divide us, or is it the thing that like I remember as a kid, we used to go to the country and all of there's a group of families that owned a little, it was a bit of dirt. There was nothing on it. It was a shed, like a roof. And the guys would go really, really early in the morning and they would start the pig. And it was like, and they'd go on the spit. This was not a fancy thing, Enrique. This thing was like, this was never going to pass any ISO standard nor any health and safety thing, right? Like there's some guy, I'm sure there were singed eyebrows and everything.
Oh yeah.
But there is something about that memory. And as you say, just connecting. Like I feel already, you and I have known each other for a little bit, but I already feel like there's another layer of connection because of that freaking pig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how simple it really can be. Sometimes we overcomplicate how we can connect. We overlook at and strategize around something as simple as, hey, share what was your childhood like? And then as you're talking, no way. So
Yeah.
was I. I had something similar. And already that connection in that storytelling, that exploratory conversation is leading to, you know what, I may not see you ever again, but boy, was this conversation so heartwarming. Thank you for that. Here's my number if you ever come. Yeah, and those are the things that makes this world truly hospitable.
Yeah.
And I think if we all did that every so often, we would see very less division as we do in our current world today.
Absolutely. I mean, it is. It's just beautiful. Um, so leadership is obviously something that is very synonymous really with Enrique Gonzales, right? Like I think leadership, okay. So where did this passion for leadership sort of come from? And I was thinking about, today, and I was thinking one of the things that you talk about is when you were younger and especially in your career, that there weren't a lot of leaders. And how did that influence you being now all over this leadership space?
Yeah. So as a child growing up, uh, like I just said, I can probably hand count on one hand the people who actually made a positive influence on me visibly and tangibly, that there was such a thing as leadership. The most that I saw was commitment to a thing, right? So commitment to professionalism, commitment to working hard, those type of things. Early in my career, even as a young adult in the military, what I saw a lot of was there were people placed in positions of authority and they held the titles leader, but that was about as far as they were willing to go in executing their role as a leader. Right? They had arrived. It's one of those things, right? And we see it many times play out corporate, business, you name it. A person has arrived and then they're want to or even care for any responsibilities after that kind of like fall away and then everybody else is doing their job for them. But that experience of seeing minimal effort to the roles of leadership was what kind of put me on a track to say there's got to be more than just arriving. And I definitely don't want to be that guy that just arrived and no more, right? Because we all know now, after living quite a while, that anything stagnant will die. And so that's what you kind of saw with these leaders. So I early on through a very arduous experience as a young sailor decided that, albeit I'll tell you, hindsight, maybe not the best approach, but it was the one I had to protect myself, right, at the time. I said, okay, I'm gonna become the best and most savvy and educated leader I have ever seen, which wasn't too far. I didn't have to do too much.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to do that because I did not want to be the butt of someone else's joke ever again. I did not want to be told, I can't understand your accent, so you are not good enough. I did not want to be told, you have to wait your turn just because. And things like that, they kind of held me back, I thought. So I took on this approach of, I'm going to plow through everything and Lord help those that get in the way. And
Right.
so, saying it now, I'm kind of like, man, that was terrible. But it was what I had learned could help me protect myself, at the same time help me continue to outpace the leaders that I was around at the time.
Right. So is this all during your more on the military side of things, or was this because it sounds like there was some real tough stuff that
Was
you had to deal with, and
Yeah,
when I look at the 26 years in the Navy, that's a long time to
it is.
be in a less, in a suboptimal circumstance.
Yeah. The suboptimal circumstances were my first 3 to 6 years.
Okay.
Um, and I'll take some of the ownership, right? There were some things that I did that kind of put me at odds with leadership. Um, at the time, married early, married with uh, no education or anything, just married early. The Navy did not like that. The Navy did not appreciate the fact that I married when the conditions were, a, you're not to be married when you come here. And so I set in
You
motion,
rebel.
yeah, I set in motion some things that already put me at odds, but it didn't define me as a person. It was a decision I made, albeit probably unwise, to put my leadership in a position where now we have to fend for this now couple, and so I'll take ownership for that. But from there, it trickled into more of a personal attack on what we would say my Latin heritage, right? My accent, which you may or may not hear a little bit. Growing up in New York, you just don't lose all of it.
Yeah.
But at my early years, I had a Spanish New York,
Yeah.
accent, and that was the focal point of all attacks, right? So it was tumultuous to say the least the first 3 to 6 years. After that, you raise in rank, and then all of a sudden now you're at you got the hand,
Yeah.
and you can say how far you're going to go with that, or you're not gonna, right? And so as I raised in rank, I was in a little better footing to stand my ground and say, you could have done that maybe last year, but this year you ain't. so so I was able to outgrow those pain years.
That's so good. It's interesting that in those earlier years that you're defining some of the issue was around your Latino heritage when we've just said 5 minutes ago that it's like I've got it, but I don't have it, but I can't hold on to it, but so it's like isn't that interesting, right?
Yes.
So when people say things like, oh, you're this and you're privileged in this and you can do this and you're whatever, and it's like, yeah, yep, still tumultuous, so it's very easy to just like get that really wide angled brush and just paint over a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, the military stuff ended up ending quite well,
Yeah.
given that you were awarded the Meritorious Service Medal, and that's that's a pretty big deal.
It is. And I tell you that, you know, thank God for mentors, right? Thank God for mentors. Like every award, you have to defend it, right? You have to have some substance to put in the recommendation, the write ups, and all that other things, right? So you have to do something. You're just not going to get one for nothing.
Yeah, it's not a
All,
participation badge.
yeah, yeah, but all yeah, my last 3 years in the military were just amazing. Not because I did anything amazing. It's that I was the most supported I've ever been was the last 3 years of my military career. I tell you, it was amazing. Number one, I spent the last 3 years in Hawaii. So just location wise, it was amazing. But
Gosh.
I had all the leaders that I ever thought I should have had my entire career. I had my last 3 years. It was like everybody came out of the woodworks and just blessed me and for all the other years that it was absentee, right? And so those 3 years, I remember the first year of my first, I got awarded the Navy Achievement Medal. The very next year, I got awarded the Navy Commendation Medal. And the last year, I got awarded the Meritorious Service Medal. You couldn't even find in any of my career such an illustrious ride that those 3 years, and it was people setting me up for success and just me executing what I would normally do. Um, but it had it not been for those individuals, there's no telling how those 3 years would have went. But I thank God for them.
It's I mean, I'm sure that you had a little bit to do with it too, Enrique, but
You
good
have to
that
do
you're
some work.
I'm sure, some heavy lifting there, but yes, the mentorships, 100%. And it almost makes me want to ask, like, okay, so you've had this whole career, you're leaving on quite a high, right? Like your last
Mhm.
3 years. And so you're transitioning then from a like a quarter. um, century of military life, Navy life. Now you're stepping into this civilian life. And it's almost like, you know, you thank God like it does feel a little like divine intervention. Like what was the biggest challenge for you to go from this way of life that you knew for so long, ending on and now it's like welcome to civilian life. What was the biggest challenge for you to?
Yeah, welcome to a blank canvas. Welcome to welcome to nothing. It's what it felt like. And the funny thing is that we often desire, man, if I could do this all over again.
Yeah.
Well, it's good for momentary things, but it's not good for a life thing. Um, Although I can attest that because of that blank canvas, I've been able to write some things, or at least some things have played out that have been, wow, oh my goodness, this would have never happened while in service, obviously. And and so for that, I am appreciative. What has been the hardest is that we come from, or at least I come from, an environment where everyone is looking out for each other to an environment where everybody seems to be looking out for themselves. And so when you don't have that trust in another to have your back, regardless of what goes down, that's very scary. And when you have that in the military for so long, where no doubt if, like, someone came on base, I hate it for them, right? But someone did come on base, there's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that we're all going to pitch in. And there's not going to be anyone giving less than 100%. Now you come on the outside and something goes down, and what you see is fingers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Your fault. Yeah. That wasn't
it,
me.
it wasn't me, it was that guy. And you're like, whoa, what happened here?
Mm.
And and so and the reason why I'm an entrepreneur, right? Because there's so much to be taught on what it really is to be a citizen of the world, right? We are all citizens by location of the place we're at, but in reality, we're citizens of the world.
Mm.
As human beings, had there been no boundaries, what would we be citizens of? Right? The world. And so when you look at it that way, it doesn't matter to me if it's Chinese. It doesn't matter to me if it's Cuban, Russian, and you see I'm pointing at places where most people kind of like, it doesn't
Absolutely.
matter.
Yeah.
That's a human being, and that human being should count on, or at least be able to count on, that in dire need and dire times, that me, that I'm gonna be there.
Yeah.
And how much better would this world be? Oh my Lord, if that
Ab
was the
ab
case.
absolutely. It sounds in on the one hand, oh, come on, like especially the places that you've picked, right? You know,
Yeah,
little controversial. Um,
right.
and and yet 100%. Like it's at the heart of it, we are all in it together and we are all humans. And when we see that first, it's almost really that spiritual lens of, like we're all the same. And I know that faith plays a big role in your life,
Mhm.
Enrique. And I wonder, I mean, how do you see faith and leadership, you know, as playing a role in your life and outside of the things that you do?
Yeah. So a leader that can ever say, "I don't have faith," is not a leader. Leadership requires a ton of faith, a ton, and because you just never know anyone's current state for any given time of your team, let alone your neighborhood, right? Uh, but your team, you put this inherent faith that they're going to show up to work on time, that they have a vehicle that they can do so, or mode of transportation, that they're not starving, that that there's just so much faith that is required, and a leader that can take what I would say is divine faith into their leadership, can bring it in, uh, can provide such a ground, such an environment for their people to thrive, right? I was just reading not so long ago in Romans chapter 14, Paul's talking about don't judge folks. And what do leaders do? They judge all day long, right? So as a faith, uh, a person of faith, and I take that and I'm reading it on my own personal time, and then I'm saying, man, how many times did I judge my team today? Wow, man, shame on you, brother, because you talking about you are this, and yet you're doing exactly what this thing is saying not to do. How about we change that tomorrow? How about tomorrow? You don't judge why John came in late, and you say, hey, John, let me talk to you.
Yeah.
Is everything okay? Because, you know, you have been late. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
I just want to know what I can do to help you in the reason that you may not be telling me why you're late. What can I do? Wow. If I had leaders like that throughout my military career, I would have been, whoa. And it would have made me a better team member. I'll tell you that, because then I would have said, hold on, my leader, yeah, he might have been pissed off that I showed up late, but he's more interested in fixing my issue, my current demand that is keeping me from showing up to work. He did not know that I had to walk 2 miles because my car is just too expensive to fix. And he had a spare bike. And yeah, he can't pick me up, but he gave me the spare bike. And now instead of 2 hours, I can take an hour off of that and still get to work and fulfill my response. Those are the type of things that happen when you have leaders that have a different approach to their leadership style, because now they know that, hey, I don't got it all, and I'm trying to fix myself. But in fixing myself through this faith background, I'm fixing all of us, you know?
Yeah, it's taking that, like what's your response to, a situation rather than a reaction. And
Oh
what's
yeah.
all those judgments of, oh, lazy bugger, he slept in or whatever.
Mhm.
And if that opening volley is really, hey, what's going on? Talk to me. It's human to human as opposed to I'm your entitle manager and let me flex my muscle, which will do neither one of us any good because we're going to not even have the bike conversation. So you're still going to be sweating it out, and it's not going to be great. And it's interesting because so many people shy away from either the faith or the spiritual or the religious conversation. Yet I'm loving how much more research is being done to actually, prove, in sort of the logical head terms, the stuff that intuitively is right. There's stuff around employee effectiveness. There's stuff on servant leadership. There's stuff on workplace spirituality, all which is saying, hey, this is really good stuff. The results are there, and I love that you came into it on the human element first. Like it's just good human practice almost. And by the way, the research supports what you're saying. You know?
And I what I love about, and I'll tell you, so a lot of people go about this the wrong way and have presented faith in a I would say an inquisition type, if you would say, this or nothing. I don't ever, if I ever have to open up my mouth and say that I'm a man of faith, shame on me. Shame on me, because my actions should tell you there's something different about Enrique. My actions should point you to Christ. They not because I'm saying go, that's the Savior, but because He's mine. And when you take that experiential journey, you don't have to do anything but live. You know, I am faith.
Yeah.
If if you meet me, you will know what faith looked like. If you meet and speak to me, you will know what Christ sounds like.
Yeah.
If you spend any given time with me, you will know how good God has been to me.
Mm.
And so if I live my individual life like that, I will be faith. And so for those that we don't speak that, you don't have to. You
Yeah.
don't ever have to.
Yeah.
Because I've had people come to me that have never ever spoken to me and say, I know you're a man of faith. Could you pray for me?
Mm.
Ooh, that makes my my hair stand up, because that is faith.
Mm.
And if you have to say it, man, and it really maybe not it.
Yeah, it's not something you do on a Sunday or a Saturday night or whatever. It's got to be it's you got to live it. And it's interesting by not getting um that recognition, it's not that pretty packaging underneath the Christmas tree. It's what's inside the box. It's how you play with what's inside the box. And we get so caught up in the wrapping of it and the fact that you're using blue wrapping and I'm using red wrapping and you're doing that on a Saturday and he's doing it on a Sunday.
Right.
But yet, if you just did it and zip.com
Yep.
around then gosh, wouldn't that be easier?
Yeah. Well, because it's tangible. You could put your finger on that guy every time he comes here. There's just a difference in this environment. And he doesn't say a word. I mean, people get joyful, and I see people loosen up and talk like I've never seen. What's wrong with you? You know,
Yeah, yeah.
and he just brings it. And we think about it scripturally, that's exactly what Jesus did. He would come in and they'd be like, what is this guy?
Yeah.
You know, he just brings it. And for this last couple, about 3 days ago, I was sitting outside and I was just quiet time. And I heard this. If you paid full price for something, would you be satisfied with a percentage of it? I'm like, that's a peculiar question to pop in
Mm.
my head, but no, no. I mean, if I pay full price for a house and you tell me I only have a room, no, there's gonna be some problems, right?
Yeah.
And then I heard this: I paid full price for you, and I was like, I got it.
Got it. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know where you were going with that. And then, yeah, that's it. Absolutely.
and,
100%.
and so right then and there, I say, hey, Lord, if I'm giving you 99.9, that stops right now. And when I started to think about, well, how do you go from 99.9 to 100, right? It's not anything you could do. There is literally nothing I can do to ever get to 100. But Christ did,
Mm,
and he still can if I let him.
yeah, if through you. Yeah.
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 If I let him. And
Yeah.
so that was the obviously the end of that conversation. But back to why faith is so important to leadership. You change environments. You change environments. You give hope. There's been people that I've managed and led that were plumb out of hope.
Mm,
And the only hope they could see was to reach out to me, even behind some wall. Right? Hey, can you can you pray for me? Yeah.
yeah.
Right? Because they didn't want nobody, and that's fine. Nobody needs to know, but they need to know that you are there. And so faith is important. If you strip leadership from faith, and then a leader that is of faith, if you strip yourself from the opportunity for someone to come to you because they see the thing, yeah, they see that guy in you, then you're doing it wrong, and I'll end up. He paid a full price. So
Yeah.
very short.
You got to bring your whole self, and if that's part of who you are, then it is getting you to that 100%, and leaving that at the door, or feeling like you need to leave that at the door because of what you think someone else is going to think, is not going to be getting your money's worth, really. And no one's getting paid their worth, really. I want to I want to make sure that we have time to sort of talk about your queen. Because
Yes.
I know we've had a number of conversations over our times, over the last few months and that, and I was always inspired and just really heartful around how you talk about, and now I know the background actually of the whole long distance thing, and all that, what's happening over in the Navy. Enrique
Yeah.
got married. So talk to me about your queen and your family and how they play a role in making you a great leader.
Yeah. So I'm very fortunate as a man to be at a point where I realize the value of what it is to have a suitable helpmate. Now, I will tell you that so my second marriage, first marriage was it's gone for a reason, right?
Yep.
Um, but when when you go looking for something, you'll find it. And sometimes that as a young man, it's not what you was thought you was looking for. But as I had opportunity uh, to be conscious of who you paired yourself with, um, and I'll tell you, my wife has loved me. Admittedly, she came to realize that there was something funny when she was 11. At 15, she knew she loved me. We did not marry till we in the 30s.
That's a long courtship, Enrique. I don't know about
Well,
that.
well, that's a long time for her to wait because I had no idea. I had no idea. I was living my life.
Yeah.
This was all going on in her world,
Mm.
non-existent in mine because I just had no idea. Obviously, one era of my life goes away. My sister, hey, come to New York. Hey, this, that, and the other. Uh, we get reconnected, and I just knew that having had suffered prior, what type of woman I needed, and I knew it was her. I knew it. I said, if there's anybody, I remember telling me myself, if there's anyone on this earth that could love you as you need it, that's it, right there. And so I prayed about it, and I felt clearance of the Lord to, to pursue. And 18, 19 years coming up now, but not every man realizes the fullness of this life partner they have. And to be honest, if every man did, there are some people that are just not compatible. They have different views. They're going different directions. Those that's a obvious, something's gonna happen, and you're gonna come apart. But there are some people who separate because they just fail to look outward and then and more inward. I was fortunate to have my wife with me through every, I would say, cleaning system God put in me. And she loved me through it all, good, bad, and ugly. And believe me, she has heard about the ugliest things that I could have ever done. And when I realized that when I opened my eyes and she was still there, I said, that's it. I mean, who could endure knowing every single thing of you, including those ugly things, and still be there? So I'm thankful that God was gracious to me to allow me to live my lifetime and have somebody like her with me, till today. So, yeah, she's my queen. I'll tell everybody. And, it's important it adds to my leadership ability as well, right? Because having those conversations with her, knowing that some of those broke her heart to pieces, yet and still she was hearing on her end, love him, love him. It's just a dynamic that you can't, no one else, no one else gonna go through that with me. So
And
it's
it's
powerful.
there, you've got two humans, two souls sort of together, and you're both on a journey together, but you're also on a journey, a unique journey. And her
Mhm.
journey, holding fast to the path, irrespective of what's going on your journey, how powerful that is. And it's interesting. Before we kicked off today, you were mentioning about the quarters in life, like the how we evolve as humans as in our different quarters. And it's kind of almost like she was almost ahead of you in the evolution process,
Yeah.
or learning a different thing at the time, thank goodness,
Yeah.
because it gave you that solidity, and that acceptance of the imperfectness of being human, irrespective of, like we will all stuff up every single day. We make a mistake. And to have somebody in your corner that can look beyond that and still love you is magic. That's beautiful.
Oh yeah.
So
It's
good.
powerful. It's a reflection of what true love is, right?
Mm,
Um, and when and that's why I say faith is so important.
mm.
She could only reflect what was being reflected on her.
Yeah. I
This
mean,
wasn't her, right? I'm sure she was about one one airline ticket away from going,
yeah.
but but she allowed God to reflect on her the same love that Christ had on us when he was on the cross, right? Um, and so, and I remember telling her this. I said, I love Christ, but I've never had a person to reflect to me what Christ looked like.
Mhm.
And you're that person. And so, yeah, I'll stop there before I start crying.
I know I'm just so loving your vulnerability, you know, Enrique, because it's for a man to have that ability to reach into his emotions and to be able to share that is it is rare. It is getting better, but it is still, it takes a lot of courage. And so I acknowledge your courage
Oh,
around
thank you.
that. And I really appreciate that. And I mean, you talk about some of this stuff and that the whole, the book. I mean, you've written a number of books and the Lion's Pride, the Scars That Silence Kings. Um, you know, it's those stories that you're willing to share that demonstrate and role model, being a 100% human,
Yeah.
being that getting your money's worth person.
That,
Is there
that yeah,
that book?
that book was so liberating. It was liberating because if there's anything we do as men is that we hide. We hide well. We hide well. And women too, women too. But yeah, this was a man's men's book and but we hide well. And I think one of the biggest challenges that leaders have is that they are professional hiders. They hide well. And your people don't need that. Now, your people may not need for you to read them your chapter of the pride or nothing. Like they might
Yeah,
not want to hear all that.
yeah,
Um, but they also don't want some fake person showing up here talking about how I was late when you had your share of lateness. And instead of telling me there's a solution and you're willing to work with me on it, you're pushing down my throat how you may have not been ever late, and nobody eats that, right?
yeah. It's
So
just not true.
we hide a lot, and there's so much freedom in when I wrote that book, I just was tired of hiding.
Mm,
I'm like, enough already, man.
yeah, it's a heavy,
Who you
heavy burden.
yeah, not only is it a heavy burden, but who you think you're fooling, man?
Yeah,
There's people out there that were with you when you did all that craziness. So they know, but
yeah,
who you think you're fooling?
yeah, yeah. They know where you've hidden the bodies, right? Like it's a thing.
Come on, man. And so I chose to do it to become the better version of me as a leader.
Yeah,
A leader that has nothing to hide behind it's a great leader. Not
yeah,
that I'm a great leader. I'm just saying that you have the potential for being a great leader because now you could use your scars as stories for your people and say, I'm not talking to you because you're late and because I ain't never done it. I'm talking to you because I know what that is,
yeah.
but I'm willing to help you. So can we work on it? Oh
Mm.
my God.
Yeah, it's a whole different approach. And the one of the other books the Latino Leadership Playbook. I mean, again, if you look at the stats, 20% of the population is Latino, 4% of the 4% of senior management roles are Latino. So we know there's work to be done. Um,
Right.
do you have any case studies or a story of somebody that book has helped?
I can't tell you who that book has helped. Um, what I can tell you is that we are making some good strides. The last incumbent to the senior enlisted advisor of the Joint Chief of Staff, was a Puerto Rican kid from my hometown. And I was like, holy moly, you only get one of these guys every 3 years. One, there's only one of these guys.
Mhm.
And a Puerto Rican kid from my hometown, and he's got streets named after him now. I mean, it's just amazing. Which it goes. It's. I hope it's a story that a lot of kids will grab onto and look and hold in high regard and say, I can do it. I can do it too. There is only one select every 2 years, so the odds are very, but it happened. It
Yeah.
happened, right? And so when the Latino Leadership Playbook, it's basically a blueprint for Latinos around the world to be able to navigate the structures of uh, corporate America. How can you become a better percentage? And I hope that book and it has been helping a lot because I see Refugio, which is the author. He's doing a lot of work with that right now, and a lot of people are being touched and impacted. So it is helping. I don't have the stats. I'll make sure to ask Refugio, but I do know that there is a lot of work to be done, but it can't be done if we don't do it. And so, for those Latino leaders out there that are looking to up their game, that book is a great way to get yourself there. But you have to still do the work, right? I couldn't have been a senior enlisted leader of a command that had more than 1,000 people if I had not done the work. And I
Yeah.
was blessed to be able to serve in that capacity, but it could have been somebody else. It couldn't have been maybe somebody else, but it was.
Yeah.
And you just got to do the work.
Absolutely. And your podcast, just as we're sort of getting closer to the end of our time together, I'm really interested to, what inspired you to launch that developing the leader within podcast, which is, it's so accessible and such a great way of going through so many different topics. Really super interesting, and the breadth and depth in which you cover topics is wonderful. What was the inspiration?
Yeah, well, I lost my job. I
Oh,
lost my job.
great.
I lost my job. A personal choice I made because of bad leadership. And so I said, well, Enrique, well, what you gonna do now? You're at home. Pandemic just started yesterday, and so this doesn't look bright. So what's going on? What you gonna do? And I said, well, I can't let my knowledge die with me. I'm going to package this in a way. And then initially it was just me and me sharing. I was like, no, well, that's kind of boring, bro. You need to bring somebody else in here and start, getting into conversations. And that's where it's diverged to. But the name was my wife. She knew I was John Maxwell. She's like, why don't you just call it Developing the Leader Within? And I was like, I guess that's it. So, yet again, another help
Yeah.
from her side. Uh, and the aim was, like I said, we mentioned earlier, uh, borderless leadership. How can I bring the world to my listeners without them having to, pull their passport out? And
Yeah.
that's how I wanted. I wanted worldwide leadership perspectives. I wanted people to know that it's not all U.S. The U.S. is this big compared to the world, but we think that that's is backwards. No, the world runs very well, even outside of U.S. leadership, and I needed to bring that into the mix and educate some U.S. Uh, folks that hey, there's some other people doing it way better than us, and maybe we need to listen. And
Yeah.
so that's how all that came about. And wow, over 200 episodes later, and yeah, just loving every conversation.
That's so good.
Matter of fact, you're going to be on there
I will.
this
I
coming May.
later next year. It is. I'm looking forward to it already. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Um, so we touched on a bit around legacy before we jumped on our call, and
Yeah.
there are so many fingers and so many different pies that you have, Enrique. Um, what legacy are you hoping to leave behind as, as a leader, as a mentor, as a podcaster? What's that going to look like for you?
Yeah, well, those that you mentioned are nice, but I want to leave a legacy to my kids. Number one, that you're never shortchanged if you give your all to God, ever. You will shortchange yourself if you give anything less than 100, right? So that's the first and foremost legacy for my wife to understand and for my children to understand. If I could leave that, then I've left a treasure trove for all of my descendants from here on out. And so that's my first. In terms of leadership, you're going to have so many come through your life. I want to be the type of leader that you say, man, I'm better off from because I met that dude.
Mm.
And if I could do that as a leader, uh, some of my writing is because of that, right? How can I pass my leadership experiences in written form that is, people could read forever and ever? So that's part of it. But just simply that, can people say, man, my dad talked about you because that one time that he needed a good leader, you was the one. Yeah, that's what I want to hear. Um, in terms of podcasting, all the other externals, those are my gifts to the world, really. I am donating my time to podcasting so that I can bring a world exposure to all these beautiful people that are doing leadership across the world in a different way, maybe some a lot of it's similar, but in their different ways, so that people can understand that leadership is not territorial. You
Mm.
have to be able to lead wherever it is that you are, and sometimes you're going to find yourself in Croatia. Another time you're going to find yourself in Canada. Some other time you're going to find yourself in New Zealand. And you still have to lead in all three places. And how do you do that? It definitely is not by saying, this is the way we do it, right? That's just not going to fly. How is it done and how is it needed? Because sometimes we have a lot of tools, but they're just not needed, right? And you have to know when and when not to.
Yeah, if just because you've got the hammer in the hand, not everything around you is a nail. And that's
Yeah.
that discernment and that kind of that decision making, I think a lot of times rests on the courage that we have to be ourselves and be authentic and listen to the inspiration and, divine intervention and et cetera, et cetera. Um, as we close up, is there any sort of piece of advice that you would want to leave listeners with about just living authentically and
Yeah.
being happier in life?
I had uh, last year, I had a dream slash experience that I was just talking about it with my brother. Um, I woke up in a tunnel and realized that it was hell. And there's two things that I remember vividly from that experience. Number one, I was terrified. And number two, I thought of no one. And when I remember that, I said, I thought of no one. No one came to mind when I realized where I was. And so when all is said and done, all these trivial things that we just lose our mind over. You won't think about any of that. You won't think about nothing nor anyone. And so consider that in making your life a whole lot more peaceful, because it really is made to steal from you. It really is made to rob you of wonderful opportunities to just love your life. And if I can encourage anyone with that experience, is to don't take yourself so seriously. And remember, this is only one time you get to do this. And if you could do it understanding that at the end, there's just you're not going to think about anything and anyone. Um, it'll make your life a whole lot easier. Definitely make you more enjoyable. So
Yeah. Don't sweat the small stuff and don't take it too seriously. And it's so true. I mean, when we find ourselves sometimes feeling like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? I can't believe it, and going in that little spot, this the spiral. And it's like, actually, if you just have that pause and take a breath and put that perspective that you've talked about into it, it's like, you kind of got to giggle a little, because it's like, oh my gosh, I was just working myself into a sweat here about something it's absolutely ridiculous. It's like when we argue when we can't remember what, oh, I'm just really mad at you. No idea why. Absolutely gone. Like 3 minutes after I, started pouting. And it's like, it's just not use. Just laugh it off. That's, it's just not worth going there.
I saw something just yesterday. I showed my wife. I said, "Isn't this a shame?" It was a report on news. Obviously, we just had elections. Um, that said there are families that will not have Thanksgiving together because of the elections. And I said, "Are you kidding me?" And
Ridiculous.
and it is true. There are a lot of reports that are factual. Some families that just are not going to be together over what?
Yeah.
Something that's going to change in a handful of years? Come on, folks. And
Yeah.
so these are the things, right, that separate us, that continue to separate us when there's just so much that unites us. So lead well and lead light, right? Because that's what gets you to the next day.
Love that. Love that so much. That's so good. Thank you so much, Enrique, for sharing your life and a bit about your work and how you have lived a very authentic life and overcome the challenges and made yourself better and given your 100%, and constantly sort of being the role model and helping others to learn by just being with you, as opposed to saying anything, doing anything, although you've done a whole lot of that stuff, but just the simplicity of what can really, really make a difference. So I really, really appreciate your time. You also very kindly have agreed to offer a bit of a coaching discount. Do you want to just share that with us?
Yeah, this has been such a wonderful conversation. Anybody listening that uses the code DTLW on my coaching sessions, you'll get 50% off. That's a considerable amount of off, but I'm willing to do that because at the end of the day, my aim is for you to become the best version of a leader that you can be. So if you use DTLW on checkout from my Calendly sessions, you'll see that discount show up for you.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for that. And we'll make sure that's in the details in the written part as well.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. So thank you so much for joining us on the Authentic Living and Loving channel. If you have a story to share that will inspire others, we'd love to hear from you. Until we meet again, I'm Dr. Jordan Alexander, encouraging you to join the UBU revolution. Let's all live a life we don't need a vacation from. Thank you again, Enrique.
Thank you.